All right, so this here is a puppy sleeve. It's made out of bite material. It's got a line to it. Whenever you see these lines attached to like a bite object of some sort, usually means that it's meant for more puppies or dry building. And really it's just presenting it to the dog bites it. As soon as they get it, you might hold on to it and keep the tension so that the dog holds on to it. So these are all just for building puppies, and some people use this for if they're going to a sleeve, but really it's about being what this is kind of maybe teaching dogs early stages of dogs that might be biting bite suits and stuff like that. So that's what that is. This here is a hidden sleeve. So this is designed to go underneath maybe a big sweatshirt or a jacket. And this is more for training dogs that might be doing police canine work or personal protection, where the person mounts their dog to really bite people and not be totally equipment focused. A lot of dogs will be focused on the equipment and won't bite unless they see some kind of equipment. So this, you hide under stuff so the dog starts biting arms even though they don't see the equipment. So that's what that's for. Since I'm here, dumbbells. You got a level 3 dumbbell, the biggest one, level 2 dumbbell, level 1 dumbbell, and that 1, 2, and 3 corresponds with the levels of the IPO, level 1 IPO, level 2 IPO, and level 3 IPO, and 3 is always the top. So when they do each level, they're going to use a different size dumbbell for a retrieve over a jump. This particular dumbbell has little strings on the side, and really it's for when the dog holds on to it, you're able to hold on to this dumbbell and give it a little bit of twerks. And what happens is when the dog feels like it's getting pulled out of their mouth, they hold on to it tighter. It creates a much more tighter hold on the dumbbell for the, a lot of dogs, if they haven't really been trained, they just mouth it and it moves around in their mouth like this, but once you start pulling it like you're going to pull it from them, they hold on to it. So that's a training dumbbell. Let's see. So harnesses. Anytime you're going to tie a dog out, to do agitation work, which in protection work, agitation work really is just building the drive of the dog to where their dog has a lot of drive to bite whatever you're producing for them to bite. And what you do is you create frustration by tying the dog out to a pole or whatever, and the dog wants to get the prey item or the bite, whatever it is you're presenting for biting, and it creates anxiety and drive, and you wait for that drive to get really high, that they really want it, and then you reward that high drive with the actual bite. But with agitation harnesses, since they're tied off to it, a lot of times they'll go slamming towards the end of it, and it really produces a lot of like what could be a correction to the dog. So you want to make sure any kind of agitation harness has a good pressure dispersion rate that disperses all the pressure here on the chest. Some harnesses you see just have one strap across the chest. Those tend to give much more of a correction to the dog, so when the dog slams up against that tie out, it feels like a correction to them, and it actually takes their drive down. So really important when you have agitation harnesses that there's this pressure pad in the front to kind of help lessen that correction that would happen. Usually you're going to see most of the agitation harnesses in leather. They're just really strong, and they just get better and better as they've been worked in. So there's that. So these are what's called agitation collars. They're just agitation collar. The thing about agitation is that they're wider. They're at least 2 inches wide, and some people tie dogs off just like the agitation harness to just the collar. I personally don't like it as much because it's just any kind of like going to the end and hitting is too much of an association to a leash collar correction, and it takes drive down. The one positive things about these is that if you're trying to drag a dog in for a bite and you're trying to find a particular spot for your dog to bite, you can kind of control with a collar where their head is and where their bite is going to actually happen. This one particularly has a handle on it, so you can pull your dog back a little bit. A lot of times when you are building drive, you pull back on the dog and it builds more drive to let it go. So when you want to let your dog go for something, you pull them back a little bit and then build the drive and frustration that they want to go, and then let them go when they have it. So that's what those are for. Let's see. So here we have what is basically a sleeve, but this one particularly is made out of jute. These are also called Belgian sleeves, and a lot of times they're just like the precursor to like suit work. They'll use these, but this one's jute, and they tend to be much more for like younger dogs use these things. Mostly young dogs. Here is another, what I would just call a motivational sleeve. Like I was showing you the other wedge over there, you're starting to see a lot of these short sleeves that are multi-use. You can catch dog just like you would a regular sleeve, but it also has a handle here, and you could actually use this more as a wedge. And you can create a lot more movement with this kind of thing, so it can be good for like building drive for bites. These things are also easier to hide behind your back or hide specifically, so when dog comes in, you might ask for a behavior, but you don't want them to see the actual reward. So you might be able to hide this a little bit better. Dog does what you want, then you produce the reward. So those are starting to become very popular. Here's that same sleeve that I showed earlier in jute, just a Belgian sleeve. Very soft. These are really for puppies. And what else do we have? Oh, this thing. Basically what this is a ball holder. So you can put a ball at the end of this, and basically it's meant to teach dogs what's called a send out. And a send out is where it's like in all the dog sports, there's a point where you have your dog just run straight out and just keep running until you tell them to stop. This is a way for people to put like at the end of the field in a ball, and they send their dog out there, and their dog runs out and sees the ball and then rewards themselves. So you just start to build this whole game of, hey, when I tell you to send out, there's going to be a reward out there. So you always have a reward out there when you send your dog out there to get it, and you start off short and you slowly get it to where they can't even see it down there, but by the time they get down there, they see it and they reward themselves. When it comes to trial time, this is no longer out there. The dog runs out there through, so many times that they've done it. There's always a ball out there. They run out there. They just keep running because they think they're going to run into the ball, but the ball's not there. And then you just got your points for the trial. So that's what that is. There's also something out here called a send out sick. Same thing. It's really in here though. So this is the same idea. This would go into the ground and you would hang a ball from this here, And usually you'd use like a clothespin. So you'd take your ball on a string, and you'd have a clothespin right here, and you'd just hold that. So when the dog came by, they could see this ball from a distance, and they can just run as fast as they can and just smack and take it right out. And it's usually placed right at the level of wherever the dog's running. So there's just like creates that speed all the way to the end. Whereas like that ball holder I have, the dog slows down at the very moment, at the very end to get the ball. That just creates the speed. That's probably all that for this area. I think I got everything. Do we want to get into muzzles, I guess? So in the working dog thing, muzzles, the only real working dog muzzle I think right here would be this one. This one actually has a bite bar inside. And this particular one here is meant to teach dogs for that muzzle fighting, like going in and punching with these muzzles. That allows the dog to bite down on that to kind of absorb. Well, first it's a way for dogs to, you know, put some of their frustration or anxiety or just drive into that, holding that, but it also keeps them, if they're grabbing onto it, it keeps that from slamming into their nose more when they're punching with these. Otherwise, the muzzles are just, French ring. There's a exercise where you do obedience with the muzzle on, so people will use a muzzle for those particular sports. Otherwise, muzzles are just for dogs that might want to bite people or bite other dogs, but in the sport world, you're mostly just going to see the French ring that uses it, and those usually don't even really fit the dog. They're just put on to just so that it's really easy to put on and take off. But in protection world, they'll do muzzle fighting, and that one's a wire muzzle, which is not necessarily the best muzzle fighting muzzle because it could split your lip really bad. A dog can really damage you with that. So a lot of times they're going to be all leather, kind of like this. This particular one doesn't have the bite bar, but these are much more softer. And this is a muzzle fighting one. You can tell by the way it's shaped. And the front here is got like reinforced metal, so it can take the force of the dog hitting you. And I don't know, you want to get into collars?
Yeah.
Let's go over here. So, training collars. These here are called fur savers, and you'll see that there's a few different types of fur savers. Some are really long links, and some are short links. The reason why you have fur saver is exactly why you hear it. It's to save the fur. So most of the shepherds, longer-haired shepherds, they all wear these because when they're cinched, they're not really small. These, like a regular choke chains, will chop up a dog's hair if you use it a lot. So a lot of these people use these for corrections for more of a long hair. Some of the trials require a collar on the dog for the trial. They'll use it for just that show. But honestly, I think these are actually garbage for training because they get hung up quite a bit. So if you have the collar and you do the correction, it gets hung up. See how it just gets hung up? And that's not a good correction at all. A correction should be able to, like, when you correct, it slides very quickly and then opens up really quickly. Whereas you can see this one has little like stops all the way. These are absolutely horrid for corrections, and it tends to be a lot of people that do use these for corrections they just don't know that it's much better to have something that's very easy to open and close, and you get much more. So something like this is a much better correction because it's easy to close and easy to open up, and you can like correct real quickly. You know, it's a correction is a real fast snap and a release of the pressure. It should represent basically another dog biting. So it's got to be a really quick snap and then open up really quickly. And those just do not do that. You know, some of these shorter links are a little bit better. They'll correct a little bit better, but still they're not very good. Any of these are the better correction. Or when it comes to choke chains. Choke chains, some people like the choke chains. They, you know, the thing about choke chains, the thinner it is, the better it's going to correct. It's going to open and close a lot easier. Choke chains, you sometimes will see them are really big, and these are less better corrections, the more like the links are. Really, when it comes to any kind of correction collar, it really doesn't matter if your collar is really thin. You might have a 150-pound dog. I would still use this over this because corrections are not meant. These are not meant to hold a dog back and let their energy just pull against this. This is meant for correction before the dog has any kind of tension on it. So you really don't need these collars that are super big and badass. Some people like the looks of them, and that's really what I think they're only good for. But you really don't need anything thick if you're correcting the dog right. If you need something big and wide, you're doing it wrong. It should just be a real quick correction. Pinch collars. Most of the pinch collars, you